Okay, so hi everybody. Uh, my name is Aldrin Isaac. I lead site network engineering and site network security at eBay, and today my talk is about the support gap for community SONiC and for operators who are not big tech. It's certainly not a problem for big tech. And more specifically that in fact the support gap is resolved with community SONiC for all data center network operators who exercise rigor in network engineering. Today I'll talk about eBay's journey in this regard and the support model that worked best for us and why. So the backstory is at eBay starts with our requirements for a data center network, our next generation of data center network that we're building. And we had the usual requirements that every large data center has. But in the context of this conversation about support, there were four that kind of stood out. And those are supply chain diversification, operational consistency and flexibility, transparency and self-determination, and optimum value for spend. And they're very tightly linked together, starting from the top, supply chain diversification. So let me start with supply chain diversification, some of the reasons for supply chain diversification as it relates to eBay and companies like eBay. Looking at the business realities, well, budgets, I budget once a year, somewhere in the middle of the year. And once I budget, I can't really change that budget. It's not that flexible for me in mid-year. Capacity plans really can't be changed once they're, for example, if I need a certain amount of capacity for holiday, for Christmas, well, I need the capacity, and if it's not there, the customers will have a bad experience. Business goals can't be held hostage. In general, I know it's a bit of a catch-all, but it can't be held hostage to whatever. There could be a merger in the company, there could be some business difficulties, et cetera, and our goals can't be held hostage to whatever is happening out there with our suppliers. So let's take a look at the supplier realities. And these are all things that, I'm saying because we have had direct experience of these. Suppliers with lead times of 52 weeks. I mean, I told you we plan once a year for our budgets. Now imagine having to plan for the next year after the, for the second year too. Suppliers decommitting. You wait several months and the Friday before ship, it doesn't ship. It's been decommitted. Suppliers with significant multiple cost increases per year. Again, I told you I can't go back to the mountain and get more money. Suppliers changing hardware components, necessitating requal. Branded optics is a classical example. Before the branded optics had InnoLight underneath, and now it's Intel or somebody else, right? It's not the same hardware anymore. And if you qualified the hardware originally, it's not the same hardware you're running later, right? In the right sense, if you're practicing engineering rigor, just because the SKU hasn't changed, but the hardware has, you really do have to requalify that thing. And while you're requalifying, you need something else. Then you have suppliers have unresolved technical issues, and you need to buy something else until those issues are resolved. Suppliers who close, who have to close their shop on the line of business, that too is a reality. And then just in general, suppliers just don't want to play ball. So these are all the reasons why we need supply chain diversification. It's not like, hey, it's a nice thing to have. There's real practical business reasons for it. It's okay, go ahead, go multi-vendor, there's various vendors out there, why don't you just go do it? It's because there's challenges with going multi-vendor in the traditional models, right? That is primarily anchored on, drive for, in the networking space, the drive for, for differentiation in the proprietary NOSes and the sort of lack of uniformity that brings to operating your network, because of differentiation, because just the choices that were made for these proprietary NOSes are quite different, right? And now the operator has to take on the brunt of it, in terms of like, I'll go through some of the specifics, right? Let's take a look at software, right? Different NOSes with unique characteristics and ailments, right? The way you manage one NOS versus another NOS, the issues that you're having with one NOS versus another NOS, right? And if you happen to have NOSes with different issues in general, they're not working with each other, that can be quite problematic when you're in one of those situations. Now, this is actually mostly addressed by the SONiC community. Let's take a look at priorities, right? My priorities versus all my suppliers' priorities. Two of my suppliers are on board with some objective I have. The third one is not, right? I'm not offering enough of a deal to move them, right? And my whole objective is now stalled, right? This actually is solved with the SONiC community. There's no different software here. The SONiC community moves in tandem. And then finally, let's take a look at support. There's different support models. You know, vendor A has a certain, you know, they have their own support teams, their own support portals, their own support process. Vendor B, C all have their own. And when there are issues across vendors, you know, who is holding the bag to solve the problem? The operator. Operator has to now arbitrate between the different vendors. Now, this has not been substantively addressed with SONiC, and hence the gap with SONiC support, right? And all of these have to be resolved to achieve those 4 objectives that I spoke about. So, you know, we said 2 out of 3 isn't so bad. Like, it's meaningful enough to take that first bold step from black box to white box. Well, we have to adapt to the differences between the white box and the black box. The theory behind black box is you don't really worry about the insides of the black box, right? It's all good, works. That's the thesis. You just worry about the protocols and network engineering and the tooling, operational tooling. But when we move to white box, it's like a glass bottom boat. You see all the insides. You wanted the details. You got the details, and now the details matter. And some of the things we learned in our transition to white box were, from the hardware perspective, optics and cables don't always work. Branded optics was supposed to be the solution. Oftentimes wasn't. But yeah, this is optics and cables don't always work. We have to do a lot more rigorous testing, and sometimes it involves, you know, non-recurring engineering costs with our suppliers. And then low-level system issues. If you're an early adopter, we adopted 400 gig with SONiC. We're one of the first up, you know, and we had a couple of issues. Thankfully, no hardware respins, but there was a lot of calibration involved, right? Timing and you know, pre-emphasis settings and so on and so forth. But what we learned, though, is our suppliers had a really strong desire for their hardware to be successful in our hands, right? And the level of detail we got about the issues actually was a great learning experience for us, and my team is a whole lot stronger for that. So this was not a bad experience at all. It was, in fact, it was an extremely positive experience. Software-wise, when we started, there was you know, a bunch of features that were missing. Not big because we had simplified our design. But things like relating to TACAX, SNMP, syslog, and so on. But you know, I talked about self-determination, and this is the area that we were able to exercise self-determination. We were able to actually fix the code, right, and be a part of the community and contribute those fixes back, right? And then back to support. The options are you can buy a vendor-specific SONiC, a vertically integrated solution, which isn't really that much different from the OEM, or you can go to community SONiC, but then you don't have anyone to support you, right? So regarding technical support realities, it's easy for big tech because they can internalize it. They have their internal NOS team. The NOS team will stabilize the software and provide the technical support for it. They have the deeper pockets hiring advantage. And they also have an advantage when it comes to the support from the vendors just because of their volume. And it's just harder for the rest of us, and that's really what this talk is about. What about the rest of us, right? We could try the internal option, but you know, small niche teams carry risk, right? And large teams just can't be funded, right? And then we don't have the preferential treatments. We just don't have the volume, right? And that's just business. That's what it is, right? Or you can do the external option. You buy the, again, vertically integrated SONiC option, and then just wonder why you just didn't stick with your favorite NOS, right? The problem with the vertically integrated SONiC option or the vendor-specific SONiC option is, again, different support teams, different workflows across suppliers, different software testing, so different issues. Burden to resolve issues across suppliers still falls on the operator, right? The incentives are wrong, so there's still this drive for differentiation, and that again leads to some opportunities that the community could have coming out of the community and potentially leading to fragmentation in the community. So our operational goals are not satisfied here. The other option is that you incentivize an independent party to bridge the gap, and we've disaggregated system ASIC optics, NOS. Well, why not disaggregate support as well? And for eBay, this was the last puzzle piece to define what that disaggregated support model should look like, and then to find a partner to onboard, and which we have done and has been really successful for us. So our ops goals are achieved with disaggregated support because it's one SONiC support team, consistent workflows, and the incentive here, and this support team is providers incentivized to achieve consistent SONiC behavior. It's part of their incentive to drive towards consistency, right? It's the right incentive. And this model achieves those operational goals. So what does that disaggregated support interface model look like? Well, there's the pre-deployment engineering, where our network engineering and their development engineering work together. There's some engineering apps relating to this side, which are things like testing-related applications. And then post-deployment support, where network operations and reliability engineering team interface with technical support and support engineering teams on the provider side, with support apps, which are more focused on diagnostics. Right, so those diagnostic applications ensures that this provider can meet their SLAs. The bigger picture, stepping back, looks something like this. Features and test requirements and issues go to support provider. Platform independent stuff goes to SONiC community. In fact, the provider contributes a lot, and we may contribute as well. And then platform-dependent issues and requirements go to the hardware suppliers. This comes back to the support provider and to the community. And then what comes back to us is hardened SONiC, right? Hardened supplier hardware and network down support with SLAs. And we believe this is the model that works best if the 4 requirements that I outlined initially are important. So if you look at the left side, you can see what's missing here. It's the support, right? This is what you get with the integrated model. And it's missing on the right. And it was a missing puzzle piece. We believe it's addressed with disaggregated disaggregated support model. There are, in fact, independent support providers already in the community available to do this, and more are emerging. And in fact, our own provider is doing a fantastic job for us. So I know a lot of folks who've gotten into SONiC have, are working with some partner, but it's more like a for-hire model, and this is not about the for-hire model. This is actually a proper support model. So our call to action is operators who can benefit and directly or indirectly contribute to SONiC, either directly themselves or indirectly through their support providers, should take a bold step now to take SONiC into their networks. Hardware suppliers should be looking to make community SONiC the best and safest choice for their hardware, and that the community operators and suppliers must continue to incentivize independent support providers. And in conclusion, I want to restate again that my message here is that the support gap for SONiC, community SONiC, is resolving, and in fact is already resolved for data center network operators who exercise rigor in network engineering. So if that's you, SONiC is ready for you, and you are ready for SONiC. Thank you.